We're going to look at dividing decimals today. And just like with multiplying decimals, there are steps we can follow to help us get the correct answer. So if we have our problem 98 and 6/10 divided by 1 and 2/10, we're going to use our steps to help us solve this problem. So step number 1, before we can even do step number 1, we need to put our number and set it up for standard algorithm. So we know 98 and 6/10, that's my dividend. It's the number that I'm breaking up into groups, and my dividend goes inside the house. So I'm going to get my number set up in the house. And I know that 1 and 2/10 is my divisor. It's the number of times I'm breaking my dividend up. So I'm going to put it outside of the house. Okay, so I've got my problem set up. Now I'm ready to start my steps. So step number 1 says move decimal in divisor to make whole number. So my divisor outside the house is 1 and 2/10. I'm going to use what I know about powers of 10 to help me make this a whole number. I know that if I multiply it by 10, that it's going to move my decimal to the right one place. So instead of 1 and 2/10, now it's 12. So now it's a whole number, I'm good to go. I'm always going to multiply by a power of 10 to move my decimal. Step number 2, I have to do the same number of moves that I did outside the house, inside the house, because it's like a party. The outside of the party and the inside of the party, everybody wants to participate. So I did it, move my number 1 time outside the house, I'm going to move my decimal 1 time inside the house. So now my numbers are 12 and 986. And I go ahead and I erase so that I am really clear on where my decimals are. I'm ready for step 3. Step 3 says bring your decimal up. So in your dividend inside the house, you're always going to bring it up. So I like to think of decorating Christmas tree. You want to put that star on top. So I'm putting my decimal on top of the house so that way everybody can see it. And that's going to help me figure out my answer because that's going to keep my decimal in line for my answer. Now I'm ready for step 4, which says divide, and I've got to use the standard algorithm. So for the standard algorithm, I've got my steps lined up, divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. And I've got my cheat sheet laid out so I can fill it in and help me speed up the process. So my 12 facts, I know my 12 facts, so that's going to help me make my cheat sheet a whole lot quicker. And it might take a little bit to make your cheat sheet, but I promise you it's going to save you time in the end because instead of having to guess and check, it'll all be right there for you. Now I'm ready to multiply, or I'm ready to divide, actually. So can 12 go into 9? No, so I'm going to put my 0 there to hold the place. Can 12 go into 98? Yes, and it'll go in 8 times. So I'm going to put my 8 on top of the house. 8 times 12 is 96. Now I'm ready to subtract. 98 minus 96 is 2, and I'm going to bring down my 6. So now I'm ready to look. Can 12 go into 26? Yes, it'll go in 2 times. 2 times 12 is 24. Subtract, and I've got 2. Now, typically, if I was dividing with whole numbers, this would be my remainder. But when you're dividing with decimals, you don't have a remainder. Instead, you add zeros and you bring them down. So after my decimal point, I'm going to add a 0, and I'm going to bring it down. So 12, can it go into 20? Yes, it can go in 1 time. 1 times 12 is 12. Subtract, and I've got 8. And when you're dividing decimals, you always want to go to the hundredths place. So I know I need one more 0 because that's going to get me to the hundredths place because that's 2 place values after the decimal. So I'm going to the hundredths place, and I'm going to bring my 0 down. Can 12 go into 80? Yes, it'll go in 6 times. 6 times 12 is 72. Subtract, and you've got 8 left over. And I'm at the hundredths place, so I can stop, because if not, I'd have to keep going and going and going and going and going, because decimals will just keep going on forever. So I know 82 and 16 hundredths is my answer, because I followed my steps for dividing with decimals.